Xang returned to the village not for old memories but for a funeral. Li Wei, his childhood friend, was gone suddenly, without warning. The ancestral hall smelled of incense and rain-soaked earth, and that's where he saw her. Mai stood at the altar in mourning white, her eyes hollow yet unwavering. Her fingers clutched a jade pendant. Li Wei's. She didn't cry, neither did he. They bowed together during the Bai Sang ritual, their shoulders brushing for the first time. In that moment, grief wove a quiet thread between them. He hadn't known she'd grown into someone like this, fierce, silent, radiant in sorrow. It wasn't supposed to be anything more. But some stories begin with loss, and some hearts remember what hands dare not hold. The tea leaves of tomorrow. A hush blankets the ancestral hall, thick with incense and unsaid words. Candlelight flickers against lacquered wood as mourners in black bow their heads. Xang lingers at the entrance, his modern suit out of place, yet grief binds him here. Mei stands by the altar, draped in white, clutching a jade pendant like a lifeline. Shadows veil her face, but sorrow gleams in her eyes. A projector hums, casting fleeting memories of Li Wei laughter, youth, love, onto a pale sheet. The elders' chant rises, weaving through the smoke. Mai lifts her gaze, meeting Xang's. Silence holds them. Some truths need no voice. The glow of candlelight dances across Mei's face, casting shadows that cannot soften the sorrow etched into her features. Kneeling beside her brother's coffin, she bows low, her hands trembling against the polished wood. Xang watches, his gaze lingering on the curve of her lashes, how grief stills her breath. As he lowers beside her, their shoulders brush an unspoken, fleeting yet profound solace. The hush of mourning wraps around them, yet in that brief touch, something lingers. Not quite comfort, not understanding, just the quiet echo of two souls bound by loss. Under the soft glow of hanging lanterns, Xang and Li Wei sit on a worn wooden bench, laughter spilling into the crisp night. The scent of jasmine tea and distant mountain mist lingers in the air, wrapping around them like an old song. Li Wei, clad in a weathered leather jacket, leans forward, his smirk teasing the night. Xang bursts into laughter, his eyes crinkling with joy, the day's weight melting away. The lanterns flicker, casting golden light over their faces, two souls bound by shared history, by brotherhood. Behind them, a wooden cart rests beside a thatched roof house, silent witnesses to a moment that will linger, a memory woven into time. The mountain road twisted like a serpent beneath the storm. Rain slashed down, turning dirt into treacherous sludge. The roar of an engine cut through the night, too fast, too reckless. Li Wei leaned into the curve, tires skidding, a heartbeat of weightless silence. Then metal screamed against the rock. The bike spun, vanishing into the abyss. A broken helmet lay in the mud, rain pooling in its shattered shell. Nearby, a half-buried jade pendant caught the moonlight, glistening like a tear. The storm howled, washing away his tracks. Only the jade remained by dawn, a whisper of a story unfinished. The river flowed like liquid gold beneath the dying sun. Mai knelt by the water's edge, rolling up her sleeves, pale scars tracing whispers of the past. Xang hesitated, then pulled back his cuffs, revealing burn marks and crescent-shaped imprints, the ghosts of restless nights. Their reflections wavered, distorted by the rippling current. Words came slowly, at first fragments of grief, regret, and time lost and unrecovered. The river listened, carrying their stories downstream, where neither memory nor pain could cling forever. For the first time in years, the silence between them felt lighter. The lantern flickered, casting long shadows over the worn wooden table. Medi crept, her fingers tracing the silk-wrapped pouch before untying it. The tea leaves, dark as midnight, carried the faint scent of jasmine, and something more elusive, something ancient. She poured the hot water, watching as the liquid deepened into a rich, forbidden amber. Steam curled between them like a whisper from the past. Xang hesitated, his fingers grazing the porcelain cup. Minghun Tea, he murmured. Mei met his gaze, steady and knowing. A drink for the living and the dead. Xang took a slow sip, the warmth spreading across his tongue, earthy, bitter, and laced with something familiar. His brows furrowed, then softened, the taste unraveling like an old memory. Mei watched him, her voice barely a breath. It tastes like regret. The candlelight flickered, casting shadows along the wooden walls. A heavy yet fragile silence settled between them. Xang set the cup down, his fingers lingering on the porcelain. Then why does it feel so comforting? Mei didn't answer. Some things were better left to the aftertaste. The watchtower loomed over the tea fields, its stones kissed by moonlight. A soft breeze carried the scent of damp earth and distant jasmine. Mickey cradled the bottle of lychee wine, her fingers tracing the glass. Li Wei used to steal these from my father's cellar, she murmured, a sad smile flickering. Xang watched as her eyes shimmered, a single tear slipping free. Without thinking, he reached out, brushing it away with the back of his hand. Mei exhaled shakily, passing him the bottle. Beneath the shared blanket, the night felt a little less cold. Moonlight wove through Media's hair, silver threads in a midnight tapestry. Her cheeks were damp with tears when Xang leaned in, not out of longing, but something quieter. His lips touched her skin, light as a promise, a vow without words. They sat in stillness, the silence between them thick with shared sorrow. Below, the tea leaves rustled in the breeze, whispering secrets only the night could hear. No flame stirred between them, only embers of remembrance, of grief gently held. It was their first kiss, not of passion, but of pact. Mai's fingers trembled as she placed the jade pendant in Zhang's hands. Its surface, smooth and calm, shimmered faintly in the dim light. "Take it," she whispered, "so you don't forget why you're coming back." Zhang stared at it. The weight heavier than its size should allow, etched with memory, with meaning. Slowly, he slipped it over his head. The jade settled against his chest, warming to his skin. In its silence, it spoke of unspoken promises, of uncertain futures and one life carried forward by another. The world felt hushed at the gate beneath sterile lights and distant echoes. Xang stood still, a tin of Minghun Tea in one hand, the jade pendant warm against his chest. Mei faced him, her eyes dry but her fists clenched, knuckles pale. He turned for one last look, hoping perhaps for a sign, but she wasn't watching him. Her gaze was fixed on the pendant, her expression unreadable, carved from restraint and memory. No words passed, only the weight of what had been shared, and the silence of what must now remain. Rain whispered against the glass, a steady rhythm in the hush of the Edinburgh night. Xang sat hunched at a wooden desk, the candlelight casting soft halos around him. His pen moved slowly, each word chosen like a stone placed in a stream measured, uncertain. Around him lay unopened letters from Mei, their edges worn, their scent fading. With each envelope left untouched, her voice grew fainter, like a memory retreating into mist. He sealed his reply and stared at her name on the front, a letter sent across oceans yet further away than ever. Time moved in muted tones. Xang wandered past Edinburgh's worn stone facades, hands buried deep in his coat pockets, eyes scanning the empty mailbox repeatedly. His phone screen flickered blank, no new messages. At home, the last letter from Mei sat untouched on the bookshelf, its edges curling with time, a thin film of dust dulling the ink of her name. He often looked at it but never opened it. Some silences speak louder than parting words. The storm tore through the village, wind howling like a wounded beast, rain slashed sideways, blinding and relentless. With a groan of ancient stone, the watchtower gave way, crumbling into the earth they once shared. Tea leaves spiraled through the air, ripped from their roots, dancing like restless ghosts. Mai stood amid it all, drenched and trembling, arms wrapped tight around herself. She didn't cry. The sky did it for her. Xang stepped off the train, the scent of rain and rust thick in the air. Gravel crunched beneath his shoes as he approached the forgotten lane of his childhood. The Wei family tea shop stood silent, its windows dark, its door sealed tight with time. Vines curled along the wooden walls, reclaiming what was once cherished. Above, the old sign creaked with each gust of wind, its faded paint barely holding on. He stood there, unmoving. Some homes don't wait, they forget. The pawn shop smelled of old wood and older regrets. Dust clung to every surface, catching the afternoon light like smoke. Behind the glass it gleamed small, familiar, unforgotten. The jade pendant, Xang's breath caught. His fingers hovered, trembling. The shopkeeper barely looked up. Sold by a woman? Scars on her wrists. Xang closed his eyes, the weight of her silence pressing deep into his ribs. He didn't speak. Didn't need to. Some things aren't lost. They're left behind. Under a sky heavy with stars, Xang knelt at Li Wei's grave, the kettle whispering beside him. He brewed the final leaves of Minghun Tea, each movement slow, reverent. Steam rose from the cup, twisting delicately and fleetingly into the shape of a crane before dissolving into the night air. He didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. No more sorrow in his eyes, only stillness. Not goodbye, just peace. Rain tapped softly against the lecture hall windows. Xang stood before his students, voice calm, measured. Grief is not a circle, he said, eyes distant, but a spiral. You return to the same places, but never as the same person. As silence settled, his hand rose instinctively, fingers brushing the jade pendant at his chest. Its warmth anchored him past and present, folding into one. Outside, the world kept turning. Inside, he had finally stopped running. The marketplace bustled with life vendors shouting, footsteps echoing on wet cobblestones. Xang paused, heart skipping. A flicker of black hair vanished into the crowd. He turned, breath caught in his throat. Then a voice, soft, fleeting, Marquise, or perhaps just the wind rustling past a tea stall. He stood still as the world moved around him, the scent of lychee and rain in the air. Some ghosts don't haunt, they remind. Twilight brushed Edinburgh's skyline. Xang stood at his window, cradling a cup of lychee jasmine tea. Steam curled upward, soft as breath. He pressed the jade pendant, once Mai's, once Li Wei's against his chest. Years ago, he'd found it in a pawn shop back home. The shopkeeper mentioned a woman with wrist scars and distant eyes. By then, Li had married a Shanghai merchant. Practical, the neighbor had said. The tea was warm, but the ache lingered like an unopened letter, like a voice lost in the wind. Outside, the first stars blinked awake. Somewhere far away, under a different sky, he imagined May brewing her cup of tea, no longer bitter but quiet, like the end of a song that echoes long after the music fades.